call to order the meeting of the mayor and council of Borough of River Edge. Regular meeting, November 22nd, 2021. The time is 6:40. There was a 10-minute delay due to some technical issues. Can we have a moment of silent reflection, and then we'll have a flag salute. No, we do not have a flag present. We'll still do that. During that moment of silent prayer reflection, could we also remember a former councilman who died this week, John Serafin, who was a councilman elected in 1970 and has lived in his town since then with his family. We have a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right.
Who's the former councilman?
So, statement of compliance. Statement of compliance with the Open Public Meeting Act. This meeting complies with the Open Public Meeting Act by notification on January 8th of this location, date, and time to the Ridgewood News and the Record, and posting of the same on the bulletin board and the borough website, and a filing a notice of the same with the municipal clerk. Roll call.
Councilwoman Bastide is absent with prior notice. Councilman Canigo.
Here.
Councilman Gaudier. Councilwoman Kaufman.
Here.
Councilwoman Kinsella.
Here.
Councilwoman Montesano Cohen.
Here.
And Mayor Papaleo.
Here, I'd like to also mention that Councilman Gaudier had called me earlier today. He had a little medical emergency. If he's able to attend, he will. And I'd like to also welcome Councilwoman-elect Malari, Claudia Malari, Councilwoman-elect. Welcome to the council.
Thank you.
Very good. All right, we'll do them without objection. We're going to do the minutes, and then we're going to move two resolutions forward. So could I have a motion from Council President Canigo and a second from Councilwoman Kaufman to approve the minutes of the mayor and a council regular meeting of November 8th and approve the minutes of the mayor and council closed session meeting of November 8th, 2021?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. It is not debatable. Roll call.
Councilman Canigo.
Yes.
Councilwoman Kaufman.
Yes.
Councilwoman Kinsella.
Yes.
Councilwoman Montesano Cohen.
Yes.
All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to move forward resolution 21-328. Approval of the appointment of a junior volunteer firefighter, Jack Salane. If I could have Councilwoman Kaufman move and Councilwoman Montesano Cohen second that resolution.
So moved.
Second.
It is debatable. Is there debate? Hearing none, roll call.
Councilman Canigo.
Yes.
Councilwoman Kaufman.
Yes.
Councilwoman Kinsella.
Yes.
And Councilwoman Montesano Cohen.
Yes.
All right, Jack, here we go. Jack, do you have anybody with you?
Yes.
Yes, my dad and sister.
Let's get them into the camera if we can.
Oh, thank you.
All right, now it is customary to hold a Bible or the Quran or the Torah or a family member to hold it, and he places left hand on it and raises his right hand, but not necessary. So, Jack, would you raise your right hand? All right, Jack. Will you repeat after me? I state your name.
Jack Salane,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution
and the Constitution
of the State of New Jersey,
of the State of New Jersey,
and that I
and that I
will bear true faith
will bear true faith
and allegiance to the same
and allegiance to the same
and to the government
and to the government
established in the United States
established in the United States
and in this state
and in this state
under the authority of the people.
under the authority of the people.
I state your name,
I, Jack Salane,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully,
that I will faithfully,
impartially,
impartially,
and justly
and justly
perform all the duties
perform all the duties
as a member of the River Edge Volunteer Fire Department,
as a member of the River Edge Volunteer Fire Department,
junior firefighter,
junior firefighter,
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
I am now signing as witness, and it is customary that I allow you to say a few words if you want. If you don't want to, that's okay too. Would you like to say, or would your dad or your sister like to say a few words?
I just like to say that I look forward to working with the fire department of River Edge and protecting the citizens in it.
Awesome. We look forward to that too. And we're grateful for your time and energy that you're going to be expending in this direction. Would your dad or your sister wish to say a quick word? You don't have to.
You muted somehow.
You're muted. Go ahead.
Very proud moment. I'd like to thank you all. Stay healthy, prosperous, and be safe.
Excellent. All right, Jack. And Chief Caridi was here to witness this, and we're glad. Chief, do you wish to say a few words if you like?
I do, Mayor. Thank you. I just want to thank Jack and his family for supporting him and for his devotion. As you know, all of you know, it's a lot of time involved. Tuesday nights, Sunday mornings, plus Jack is still in school, so he's got that. So we're just very proud to have him and have him be a part of our special team in the River Edge Fire Department. Thank you, Jack and his family.
Thank you.
All right, now, Jack, we have a riveting council meeting, which you can stay for or you can leave. It's up to you.
I would, but I do have schoolwork that I have to attend to.
All right. Take care, Jack.
Thank you.
All right, I'd like to move forward without objection, resolution 21-326, which is a resolution urging the New Jersey legislature to create legislation that would establish emergency medical services as an essential government service. Could I have Councilwoman Kinsella move and Council President Kanigo second?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. It is debatable. Is there debate? Hearing none, roll call.
Councilman Kanigo,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kaufman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kinsella,
Yes.
and Councilwoman Montesano Cohen.
Yes.
Okay, is there any member of the audience who would like to say a few words in this regard from REVAS, River Edge Volunteer Ambulance Service? You would please raise your hand now, and Councilwoman Kaufman will make you a panelist. *9 if you're on the phone.
One second.
Sure.
Ron, you can speak if you'd like. Just
And
unmute.
you can also turn on your camera. And Ron, if you're going to speak, I forgot to ask, but one second. Not council. Fire Chief Caridi, you spoke before and I didn't ask you to give your full name and address for the record. Could you do that?
Sure. Greg Caridi, Assistant Fire Chief, 193 Wayne Avenue.
Thank you. Ron, if you could give your full name and address before you speak, and we're grateful that you are going to speak. Maybe. He might be having problems with his mic.
Ron, can you unmute? If anyone else would like to speak, just raise your hand. Sure.
Well, if you change your mind or if you resolve your technical issues in the next couple of minutes, we would be glad to hear from you. But at this point, what we'll do is we'll move on and we'll go for discussion. Update of fire company number 2 damages from Tropical Storm Ida. Ms. Apertola.
Yes, our DPW superintendent, Mr. Melito, will address the issues, a lot of the damages that were sustained and what has been done to date, as well as all of his tireless hard work in arranging with JIF, the flood insurance carriers, and FEMA. And also, he and Mr. Acosta visited Firehouse 2 today in order to provide an assessment for tonight's meeting.
Excellent. Mr. Melito, Mr. Costa, you have the floor.
How you doing, Mayor and Council? Good evening. Ever since
Oh,
Ida,
just for the public's benefit, Mr. Melito is our superintendent of public works and Mr. Costa is our borough engineer. Go ahead, Jason.
thank you. Ever since Ida, we've been working tirelessly trying to get the insurance claims in and getting everything back to where it was before the storm hit. I've been working with Chief Coretti on getting a lot of the contents completed and into the insurance company and getting the building remediated. At this time, we have all the contents in. I've talked to the insurance company adjuster numerous times. They are starting to cut us our checks back and refunding us. And we've been working forward in the rehab process. In doing that, we were remediating. We've reached out to SurfPro to get the building remediated after we had an air quality test done, which showed we did have mold in the building. At this time, we failed the mold quality test, and SurfPro had given us a quote to move forward. At this time, we have not. We are waiting for this council meeting to advise you of the next steps going forward, because after mold remediation, we will be gutting the whole building. So at this point, we will be stuck moving forward until I can get pretty much a quote for rehab of this building. And to do that, we're going to need an architect for what we're looking to do, and that's make it more flood resistant and be able to wipe down, get everything off the floor, move electrical outlets up and all of that. We will be doing structural changes to the building. So we just need to get a direction. We're definitely going to schedule the remediation, but to move forward, to get more money and to get this into the insurance company in time, we just need the okay from you to get that architect in and get the estimate done and get it started. So that's where we are right now. If Chief Coretti has anything else to add to that.
Well, before Chief Coretti, let's hear from Mr. Costa. Go ahead, Mr. Costa.
Mayor, good evening, members of the council. Good evening, everybody. So absolutely. Jason and I met this morning. Then I went back to Burrow Hall. Jason handed me some plans that were done many years ago. It looks like the Dead Sea Scrolls almost that he handed me this morning. I took them back to my office. I don't know if we're going to be able to scan those or not. I actually had to leave. I had to go to other meetings this afternoon. I just texted Jason from my office. He hasn't gotten back to me yet. But in order to get obviously building permits, based on what I saw this morning, the back room obviously has to be gutted. The electrical is too low. It was actually inundated with water with the flood. Most of the partitions that are inside, the wood partitions, the idea is to remove them, put back block walls that if this does happen again, You're not gonna have to take the whole building apart, get all the mechanical systems higher up. That if it is inundated or not, I shouldn't say if, when it gets inundated again, at least those components will be out of the flood, out of any harm's way. In order to do so, you're gonna have to do plans. It's not what I do, so you're definitely gonna need an architect and possibly probably a mechanical engineer also with that. And again, I'll quarterback it if the council so desires with Jason and get this to the finish line. From my understanding, Jason, I think you said this morning you have a couple months left to submit the quotes back to FEMA. So the timeframe is pretty quickly. And again, we're going into Thanksgiving week. You got the holidays coming up after that. So it doesn't sound like it's that far away with all the vacation time and the holidays in where we are right now. So the quicker the council can give Jason the authorization, the quicker.
So
we
let me
go.
just ask a couple of clarifying questions before we go to the council or Chief Caridi. It was my understanding from a visit I had made to company number 2 that that the mold failure had occurred in the back community room and that we were going to gut the back community room only. Now tonight I'm hearing that we're gutting the entire fire department, the building.
No.
So
Mayor, not the entire not the entire building. The majority of the building is actually concrete and tile.
that's what
So
I
you're not
thought.
gonna have to touch any of that. I think would it be the dispatch desk in the front? That's a wood partition. And then I believe there's a partition in the rear portion of the building that's wood also. The majority of it is concrete. So
So
the
to
structure
clarify,
itself-
we are not doing the whole building as the superintendent said a moment ago. We're really
not the
doing
entire building.
the back of the building, which is the non-firematic section of the building. And firematic means that non-essential to the operation of the fire department, company number 2, which is the community area. And the dispatch area, which is, I think, about a 5x6 room, something like that.
Probably,
Yes.
I would say that's a good estimate, yes.
Okay. And if I understand correctly, what we're doing is you're asking the council to consider an architect for this, and both Mr. Melito and Mr. Costa feel that that would be the appropriate way of going forward.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So before we go to the council's questions or comments from Chief Caridi, I'd like to go to our business administrator, Ms. Apertola, and ask for her assessment of the current plan, the current request, which is to hire an architect and for those 2 specific areas. And also before I do that, I believe Mr. Melito and Mr. Costa, that now that we've clarified that point, the building will continue to function as an active company number 2 building, which will be able to dispatch the fire company trucks from that point. Is that correct?
Yes, there's also a couple more areas in the building, Mayor. There's just not those 2. There's where you go in through the side door, there is a stairwell that was also underwater, and there is a back closet area that's all been underwater in the main bay. That's all been for mold. So it is 3 or 4 locations, not just the 2. The main bays are in concrete, so they don't have to be touched. And you are correct, they can still be dispatched out of that. The furnace
Now that-
system
Good.
and
Now that
everything
we've
has
clar-
been,
Okay, now that we've clarified that, so we're talking about 3 or 4 locations. We're
yes,
talking about the non-firematic community room in the back. We're
yes,
talking about the dispatch room in the front, which is about 6x4 or 5x6. And we're talking about the stairwell leading up to the 2nd floor. And we're talking about 1 closet area off the main bay, correct? Okay. Ms. Apertola, any comments or thoughts as our business administrator?
With the amount of work involved and the need to move the electrical panels and other items, because as Mr. Costa had said, it's not a matter of if, but when. This would just continue to be flooded and short out. And based on my understanding, once this flood claim is paid for, we can't continue to submit for the same item if we're not remediating. And based on the extent of the work and the time crunch that FEMA has put on us, the borough would need to move quickly. It can't even solicit really an RFQ to obtain an architect. We'd have to solicit quotes, have them fill out pay-to-play paperwork in order to get this in, or else we jeopardize losing the insurance reimbursement.
Okay, I think we're almost ready to go to questions of the council and comments from Mr. Caridi.
Mhm.
So what is our hard deadline, Ms. Apertola?
Mr. Melito has been handling everything with the insurance adjuster, insurance in the flood policy, so he has that information.
Mr. Melito, what is our hard deadline?
February, Mayor. Beginning of February, February 1st.
And Ms. Apertola and Mr. Melito, working backwards from February, and Mr. Costa, what are the steps that the council needs to be aware of in order to make that February deadline?
What needs to be done by February? The work completed, or at least some contract awarded?
Okay.
So Mayor, if you get an architect in here and can draw the plans and get us a cost estimate, that would be good enough to submit to the insurance company for their end. Of course, there's two ways we have to look at it. We have to look at it as like, so everything that is in there now is what they'll pay for. And any changes or modifications that we make will be on the borough's end. They would have to fund that, the difference. So we'd be looking for an as-like quote of how it is now. And then any improvements like concrete walls, moving the wiring up, of course, would have to be, the cost would have to be from the borough.
Okay. And last, let me go to the chief and then I'll open to the council. Chief Caridi, I am assuming that when we, that you feel that we can operate company number 2 in an unimpeded fashion during this process. Is that your opinion? And do you wish to offer any brief comments before we go to council questions?
Mayor, thank you. Yes, it's not really an opinion. It is a fact that we have been operating. And everybody has to understand that our goal, meaning I think the council, Jason, Mr. Costa and myself, is to make sure that, we don't have to go through this again, meaning no, everything that is rebuilt back there would be a brick, block, tile, stuff like that, getting the electrical up so that this way we don't have to go through this ever again. And if we do have another flood, we simply literally hose out what was in there and we're done. But we will continue to function while this work is going on.
Okay. Okay, I think we framed it for the public and for the council. So I'm going to go to our council president, Kanigo. Comments, questions?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. Lizette and Jason, we're looking for the as-like quote, but the practical reality will be that we're going to be making the modifications because unless we do that, we will not be able to make future claims on insurance. Am I understanding that correctly?
That you want me to take that? So no, that's not correct. So if we put it back the way it is, that you are rehabbing the building. So yes, you can go back to the insurance company and you'll be able to do it again. But then again, could come 2 months from now. And then we'll be just getting done with the rehab. The rehab's completed, and then we'll be going back and ripping it all back out again. Because once you get water in between 2x4 walls, there's no choice but to gut. There's nothing you can do. You can't dry it behind there. You can't get behind there with any kind of sprays, disinfectants, nothing. So mold growth is definitely would be back again. So you would have to do this all over again. So the best way to do it is to add the little bit of extra money now. Like Chief Caridi said, we look at everything that could be wiped down moving everything up and then just doing it in one shot and never having to go back again. Because everything's money, because we still have to pay for our soft costs. Every time we do this, it's still a soft cost. So we still have to lay money out, even though we have
So
insurance.
let's stop there for a second for the public's benefit and maybe for some of the council's benefit. Please define soft cost.
Engineering, architectural, that's considered a soft cost.
Excellent. Thank you. Keep going.
So you would still have to do the soft cost. And again, you're still gonna have to do the remediation and we still have a deductible. This is a flood deductible, everybody. This ain't a $2,500 just deductible. This is a $25,000 deductible. It's not cheap. This building is in a floodplain, just like the DPW. We actually did this to the DPW in 2006 when it got flooded. All these walls in this building are all concrete. We had them in wood, and we've never had a problem since, and we have been flooded one other time. So it is a lot better just for a wipe down, and to spend a little bit extra money now.
Right, but my question really is about the as like quote. That's just so that the insurance company is gonna pay us that amount, and then we decide how to use that amount. Is that correct?
Yes, correct. Once we get the bulk of the money, no matter if it's contents for the building, any of that, it all goes into one general pot, and then we figure out how we're gonna use it and disperse it around the firehouse.
And because of the deductible, we're out the $25,000 right off the bat.
Yes,
Okay, so we're already 25 in the hole because of that.
yes, because it's not part of the regular JIF. That would be $2,500 because it's the flood insurance.
How much is this architect gonna cost us?
I do not know. I can't even tell you that because I haven't even started to get that far. That's why we wanted to talk to you. Rob, do you have something a little more on that?
Like with understanding you can't give us an exact number, but if you can give us like a ballpark idea of what we might be looking at, if you can.
Rob?
I would think you probably start to finish, probably 20. I would think you're gonna be in the 20s.
All right, so we got to.
I mean, looking at it really quickly this morning, Councilman, based on the back room, gut it, rip it out, change the mechanicals, change that. I think you're in the 200 range, 250. I think that's realistic. What's going on down there?
Rob, is that a hard 250 or a hard and soft 250?
That's probably both, but that's just throwing a dart on the wall. But based on, walking through it very quickly this morning, you're going to be somewhere around there. You got to gut the entire back room. All of the heating elements are on the floor. If you're going to pick all of that stuff up, the electrical system. I know, Jason, to get the building and get it back occupied, you have new water heaters that were put in already. You have new furnaces that were put in already. Whether or not you want to raise those up, because right now they're certainly in the same spot they were prior. And again, what I've said, I'll say it again for the record. It's not a question of if this happens again. It's a question of when is it going to happen again. As we've seen in the past, these storms they seem more common in the past probably 4 or 5 years than they've been in probably the last 30 or 40 years. So nothing is going to change, in my opinion, in New Jersey as far as the flooding. I know they're talking about rain taxes and this and that, but in reality, the horses run around the track. The county system is good for maybe a 25-year storm. We've had 100-year storms, 500-year storms, probably 1,000-year storms in the last 5 years, or even maybe 8 years. So it will absolutely flood in that building again.
And we're also saying that we were looking to more preventive measures like flood doors. Rob mentioned that a long time ago during this whole process with the architect to see what can be done. But again, that's all based on, where this council would want to go once we get, some of the ideas and quotes in.
The only thing is to make that building totally flood-proof, I think is probably more of a wish than the idea is, if we know these storms are coming in, the equipment needs to get out of there, obviously, and put on high ground. And then the idea is to make sure that building can get back together as quickly as possible so it can operate as a fire department, as a firehouse.
So, Council President, if you don't mind, I'd just like to interrupt and make the council aware that, in my opinion, being on the council now for 8 years, mayor 2 years, and liaison to the fire department for a number of years, to make that building flood resistant, as Mr. Costa said, I think isn't a possibility, because I know for a fact that part of the problem is that water comes through the drainage pipe and geysers into the bay when you have negative pressure from the storm drain. And then there's also a door in the back that would have to be. So I just want to advise the council, I don't think it's practical to consider making that building flood proof from a point of view of keeping the water out. What Mr. Melito is suggesting is making it flood proof, and what Mr. Costa is suggesting is making it flood proof by making it not flood proof, but flood resistant, so that when it does flood, it's just a washout, because all the walls would be stone to a level well above the current flooding. Is that correct, Mr. Melito?
Yes, but there are things called flood doors that you could get.
Yes,
And
but
you
the
could
flood
put
doors-
air,
Yeah, but Jason, the flood doors don't work if the water is coming in from the bottom, and I don't want the council to waste their time debating
okay,
that when it's not going to work. I mean, I was just down there this Sunday, and the chiefs were telling me, the fire leadership that was there, we're talking about the
you could put air cell, never mind, okay, no, I agree,
let's not present the case.
gotcha.
It's probably not going to happen. Council President, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Please go on.
No, that's quite all right. I mean, I guess a comment now from me. It doesn't seem like we have much of a choice. As always, my preference is to do things right. And as Mr. Costa has said, we can expect this to happen again. The river's right there. I mean, there's no question. You know, I begrudgingly agree that we need to do this. Thanks, Mayor.
Councilwoman Kaufman. Questions, comments?
So just to be clear, the insurance company will cover the as-like cost if we do something different? Is that correct?
I personally haven't spoken to the insurance adjuster.
Yes.
Jason, you have?
Yes, so pretty much they looked at what the building is now. They looked at what you had, what materials are in the building, and they're okay to put as like materials back. So we'll get funded for that minus the $25,000 deductible.
Okay.
Moving forward, anything that we do extra will be on us.
And do they pay for the architect?
No,
Okay.
Councilwoman Montesano Cohen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So Jason, if I understood correctly, the quote itself would allow us to get the reimbursement with the deadline of February 1st. We don't need to do any work, but the quote itself will help us.
yes, the quote itself would help us. Yes, it would qualify us, and then any little extra from there, that's a placeholder. So God forbid if there was a little extra they find behind the walls that we have to do, they would bump up that quote a little more. But yes, that is a placeholder for us, and we'd be okay with that. They would be okay with that.
All right. Thanks.
Councilwoman Kinsella.
I think the other council members pretty much asked all the questions. I just have one other additional question, Jason. The building failed 2 mold tests?
No, what we've done is we did one mold test through our air consultant group that we've used in the past, and it ranges from a 1 to a 4. So we were in the 3s. So it failed the first one that we did because we were hoping we wouldn't have to go through all this. That was the thought process with me and Chief Caridi, but obviously it didn't work. So as of right now, the back room's closed off and we got the all clear to run out of the bays, but everything else has to be remediated for them to come back and once Surf Pro comes in and does their thing and remediates it, this company will be back to certify it, that it's all been gone. So we're all cleared and that'll be on record.
And then you go to bid to do the job.
Well, then we get the architect in there and then he starts doing his magic, working with the chief and all of us and Rob on what we're looking for, and then we go from there. Out to bid and
And
Yeah, I mean, this work
may I
isn't gonna
interrupt
be
for a
done by
second?
Feb.
And at that point, a interim report would be made to the council to make sure that what we'd be moving forward with, the council would be comfortable with, correct?
yes, that he'll come up with both ways. Obviously as like with the materials, and then he'll come up with some other, obviously the wipe down materials, the spray down materials, and have a price for you, and that we will present back to the mayor and council with for you guys to make your decision on which direction you would like to go.
Excellent. Mr. Costa, I cut you off. I'm sorry.
No, that's what I was gonna say. It's, the work isn't gonna be done by Feb 1st. There's no way. So the idea is, I think you need to get, obviously, an idea, get a real idea of what the cost is gonna be, submit that under the claim, make sure it's covered under the claim. And then once it is, go back to the council, get authorization to go out to bid it, and then obviously award and get the project done as quickly as possible.
Very
I
good.
mean, that's the ideal thing. With COVID and the supply chain problems and everything else, that's real, that's reality today. So that if that doesn't rectify itself in the next few months, which talking to everybody, it doesn't seem like it will, it could add a little bit more time to get this completed. So you're probably realistically looking at summer, late summer, if you get an award sometime in March.
Councilwoman Kinsella, any further questions or comments?
No, that was it, Mayor. Thank you.
Chief Sanders is here. Chief, any comments or thoughts?
I just want to thank Jason and Greg for their hard work in with working with ServPro and getting quotes and getting everything together. It was a project that was not expected, and they did a fine job doing it.
So if I am reading the council correct, I think we have a consensus to move forward. Ms. Apatola and Mr. Sarlo, do we need a formal motion?
No, not at this time, Mayor. So you give them the go-ahead to go with it. I'm okay
All right.
with it from the legal perspective.
So is there objection from the council for moving ahead with the plan that Mr. Melito, Mr. Costa, and Ms. Apatola have set before us?
No.
No.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Melito, for all the work and tireless work you've been doing. An outstanding job since Ida, with all of our buildings. We really appreciate it. Is there any further comment about this topic before we move to our next? Hearing none, we now will move to Borough Hall and Public Safety Building. Ms. Apatola.
Yes, it was requested that our DPW superintendent prepare a presentation for the governing body in conjunction with our borough engineer with an assessment of identifying certain items in both Borough Hall and in the Public Safety Building that require attention in order to proceed and plan accordingly.
Okay. So I had made this request. I wanted to do it long before we get to the budget season. I also wanted to do it because I was made aware by Mr. Melito, our superintendent, that there are certain structural concerns. I did do a walkthrough with the building, and I know the Finance Committee has done a walk through the building. I walked through with Mr. Melito. I believe the Finance Committee walked through with Mr. Costa, but a borough form of government requires reports to be made to the council as a whole, especially when we have been put on notice. And so I want that, and the public, of course, needs to be aware, and especially because this particular concern may or may not cost a substantial amount of money. So before we get to the budget season, before the Finance Committee and the council starts, making addressing what we're going to put into the capital budget for next year. I deemed it as mayor that this would be appropriate, especially because I know that if something does occur, I would be asked what I knew, when I knew it, and what steps did I take to address what I knew. So I know that there are concerns. I have seen some of the concerns for myself. And so I deemed it as the mayor to be appropriate at this time for us to have a report from from Mr. Melito and from Mr. Costa on this matter, so that the council's aware of it before we get to budget season and consideration of the capital. Mr. Melito, please begin.
Well, I have Mr. Melito's PowerPoint presentation, so I would need to share it. Cancel. Can I be given the privilege to share? It's not appearing.
You do have it. It should be popping up. It says all panelists.
While you're doing that, can I make a brief introduction here? So
Absolutely.
So back in February and March, my buildings foreman came to me with a couple of concerns that he found for the Borough Hall and Public Safety Building. We went up there, we walked around, and I've noticed, he showed me all the concerns in these buildings, potential concerns. So we just wanted to bring it to the attention of the mayor and council at this time. The concerns are more for a 5-year plan. They are potential problems in the future, but still, this is to make a decent 5-year plan, put it together so that this mayor and council can have a direction on where to go, what direction to go in a time frame, and of course, money aspects. So again, at the end of this, we are looking just for some guidance on what you would like to do. Doesn't have to be today. Of course, it could be thought on and talked about in future conversation. All right, this is the overview for the Borough Hall facility and for the public safety building. I'm going to do both buildings individually. I won't go back and forth. So first, we're going to be starting out with the Borough Hall and moving forward with the structure. I noticed when I was down in the basement, there was 5 beams. 4 of them are on our plans for the original structure. One of them that's in wood highlighted was not and is showing signs of fatigue. Can you go to the next slide? I noticed directly upstairs above this beam, the roof is sort of sloping and the wall has a little bit of a bow in it, going north to south. This is by the health department. So go right to the next one. Upstairs is where, it gets a little bit more in depth with wear and tear. You have 1.5 inches on the floor where the level is. You have about 1 inch on the wall that's not lined up, that's bowing. And you have, if you look at this drop down up top, where the steps go up to the attic, it's not a really good picture, but the whole thing is leaning sideways. Also, there's a picture of a door here that if you notice, it doesn't open all the way. It actually hits the floor. So this is, a potential problem in the future. Next. Let's move to electrical. I've taken some pictures of this. Downstairs is a lot of old electrical on the wall. It's an old box on the wall, where it's just showing signs of wear. And of course, all these wires are under the desk of all the workers. We've had some surges in through the building. You actually hear it hum through the building, and Ms. Apatelli could talk more to that. And we also had, every time we plug something into an outlet, all the breakers are blowing. So, and it doesn't matter what outlet it is, but they are blowing. I did have an electrician there just to look at what was going on. And he said, this is a little farther than, it's a little farther than what he could do. So this is just something to keep an eye on and, you know, look at in the near future. Next. Downstairs, there's 3 sewer pipes. 2 years ago, we replaced a really bad one that was collapsed in the basement, and a little portion of it and a little portion out by the road that going into our lateral that was collapsing. There's 2 other pipes in this building that go under the concrete from pretty much the police lot all the way to the front of the building that we've been having some backups with. We're lucky we keep clearing them, but the pipe is in the ground deteriorating. So this is another concern, future concern down the road. Next. And they are over 60 years old. So you got to remember that, and it's cast. This is the front, this is the front overhang of the building, showing tons of rot down below, showing rot up top, and pretty much showing where the platform sits on, some erosion going around the poles. Again, this is another thing that we should be keeping an eye on. I don't think there's no problem with it now, but like I said, it's something that we have to plan for in the future. Next. This is the dormer up in the attic above the administrator's office. The complete dormer is rotted through both sides. The window is rotted through. You could see air gaps. This is something that we have to replace sooner than later. This is all the problem with this. It's going to be a little bit more difficult because the roof is slate. It's not like a regular shingle roof where you could just rip shingles off and put them back on 1, 2, 3. This is going to be time consuming. So next. This is the front overhang. You have some rot on the wall. The biggest problem with this overhang, when it snows heavy, snow piles up here, and instead of directing off to the side, having your slope off to the side where it would go down into this flower area, you have the slope directly down where everybody walks out of the door. We do have snow that falls all the time. We do get up there and clear it. But this is definitely got to be looked at, just possibly changing the direction of the slope of the roof going out. We also have ice dams. Okay, next thing. Burrow Hall HVAC and heating. This has been a problem ever since it was installed 7 years ago. We had numerously breaking down either upstairs or downstairs. It's a 2-zone unit. There's one company out of New York that works on it, Clima. We have spent up to June 21st, $63,475 on this unit to repair. And we still are waiting for the last time it's been out this month. So we just came back up and it's actually waiting for parts. They bypassed a lot of it. Next. Here's the repair cost list. Go ahead, you can go next. Space limitations and storage. I noticed walking through everything, everybody always asks me if I can move something somewhere. There's nowhere to put anything. We have boxes on cabinets. We have cabinets all over the place. And we have boxes in the old mayor's room. Thank God we got them out of the attic. But space limitations, this is becoming a big problem for us. Police department side, we're gonna go take a tour over there. This is the window coming in the front door. This is a solid window that goes from floor to roof. So this ain't a simple fix. This is all leaking. This is all water that comes in. We're constantly cleaning. Again, this is a potential problem in the future. It's a problem now, but we're maintaining it and keeping up with it, but it definitely has to be figured out how to reseal all of this because it's not an easy, just pull a window out and go. Next. The electrical in the basement of all the way around. These are only 2 pictures we have down there, 5 rooms. Numerous boxes that are rotted out. And just to tie these where they go, you got to chase them all the way to the old building because this comes all out of the Burrow Hall. And the Burrow Hall feeds the life safety complex. So again, another potential problem down the road. Next. This is the outside facade. There's 2 pictures here. The corners, some of this is wood, as you can see in the picture to the left. That's chewed through by rodents and stuff like that in all the corners. A lot of this other is plastic. If you go around the building, all the plastic is old and brittle and starting to break. So the crown is actually starting to come apart, which, you know, that's a potential problem moving forward. Next. This is the roof. The roof is leaking in numerous spots. All the seams are starting to leak. This roof is over 15 years old. All the seams are starting to leak around. The drainage pipes are starting to leak. And even the walls, like the overhangs that where the material goes over, starting to blow back. Next picture. This is all of the stains inside the building. This is only some. There are numerous other spots. We constantly change the ceiling tiles and constantly try to fix with caulk and stuff the roof as best as we can. But it is a flat roof. Next. This is where the Burrow Hall meets the police department. We're having numerous problems where they join. Right where your council door chambers is, that goes into that. We've always had this problem. It's definitely something that has to be looked at and possibly addressed sooner and later too. There's 7 AC units up on the top of the police department. They're over 25 years old. They're starting to become costly. And they're non-efficient anymore to maintain and run. Again, they're over 25 years old. So the replacement of these are crucial. Everyone has to get repaired every year. It's a lot of cost. Next. Police department doors. If you notice in the corner, there's rot. And in the corner where the arrow is, also the concrete is starting to dip down there. This, can you go to the next one, please? So here's the cracking. There's cracking all in it and there's cracking on the floor in a couple of locations. Go to the next so I could show them something. So this is directly underneath it. The 2 bottom pictures, all the bottom pictures except for the first left one are all directly underneath it. As you could see in the top right picture, you see the rot there in the corner, the rust, that's directly under the sally port. So everything's running down. The cabinets below are evidence cabinets. And of course, there's a lot of water infiltration. Again, this was done 12 years ago around this area and it might have to be done again. Next. ADA, if we're doing all of this work, we might as well look into the ADA compliance of everything. We have a couple areas inside. This is to the finance office. This is in the council chambers going out the back door. And there are a couple of locations. There happen to be meetings in there at the time. So this is just something to look into if we are doing any kind of updates on the building moving forward. Next. This is the outside. Just to look at all the ADA and possibilities of ADA, some concrete's coming away from the walls, missing. And there's some cracking in the structure underneath these. So something to look at. The front of the Borough Hall right here, walking up, the slope is a little inclined. That's just something to look into, of course, if we're going to be doing work, and something to plan for when we look at ADA stuff. Next. In addition, if we're looking into doing anything at the Borough Hall, there's new active shooter measures that, everybody's looking to put in, the state, the federal government. Security doors, metal fire rated. We do not have them in the Borough Hall side. They're all wood. Key codes, there is no door locks, none of that anybody could just walk in any office. There is no security feature on the Borough Hall side. And then pretty much review Borough Hall and safety for possible creating a warm and cooling charging station for FEMA events for the OEM. Look into the possibility of doing that. Next. So in closing, pretty much it is recommended that funding for an architect be allocated in 2022 to address some of the issues and professional option of both buildings with design renderings. And that's pretty much all Borough Hall. I mean, there's a little more, but I mean, I think these pictures are enough to show you pretty much what's going on. And I have Rob here, so if any questions have to be
Well,
answered.
hold off questions yet. Mr. Costa, would you, or Ms. Apertola, would you like to weigh in at this point?
Well, Mayor, and I mean, a picture is worth 1,000 words. But again, I've gone in and out of the building numerous times. I know, Mayor, you've been there. Some of the council people also with me. Structurally, obviously, there's some issues going on the right-hand side of the building that should be addressed. And quite frankly, I'm not sure if you should wait for the budget season. I think money should probably be appropriated to find out exactly what's going on with those beams, whether it was overstressed, whatever the case may be, or if there's something else going on in the foundation in the basement. I think that needs to be addressed pretty much immediately. As far as the electric, when I was there the other day, I'm going to say maybe a week or two ago, it was raining. The water was pouring into the electrical panel downstairs. So I think that needs to be addressed immediately. Many years ago, when the generator was contemplated outside, because originally the generator was a generator in the basement of the police building, the public safety building. And what Jason said earlier, when the addition was done, and I'm trying to think of the year, I just came out of school. I actually worked for Schwanowit at the time, and I believe it was under construction back then in the 80s. For whatever reason, the main electric comes into the old building and backfeeds the new addition or the new building, which in my opinion should have been flopped. So the electric should have came in the new building and then backfeed into the old building. But obviously that horse ran around the track. And then obviously the generator is outside. You got an external transfer switch that's outside, and then you feed the main panel coming into the old building. But at a minimum, you need to stop the water intrusion that's coming into there. So I think two things that the council should consider immediately: what's going on with the structure itself, that there's so much deflection with the floors, the beam downstairs. Find out what's going on and how can we re-support once we figure out what is going on. So we're gonna have to take some walls apart and figure that out, and then also correct whatever the water intrusion is, whether it's coming in from the underground electric, coming down the pipe and into the building that way, into the CT cabinet, or is there some sort of a leak through the foundation walls, and stop that. Then from there, then obviously you can start addressing the electric throughout the building, the heating and cooling system in the building. And then obviously, as far as storage, I don't know what you do with storage. You're probably gonna have to find somewhere offsite to store some of the files that are in Borough Hall. When Alan was there, he was upstairs pretty much in the attic like the Addams family. But again, that day is over. And when I was up there the other day, most of the stuff is out of the attic. So, and I'm not sure how realistic it is to store the stuff in the attic. Who wants to go up in the attic? And then is it dangerous to actually go up in the attic and leave those boxes in storage up there? That would be in my opinion. Once you go with the longer term, then I think you're gonna need, again, you're gonna need an architect. You're probably gonna need a mechanical engineer to figure out. The hardest part is if you could run some ductwork in the building, which would probably be very difficult, then you could put rooftop units and then backfeed from one place to the other and get rid of the system that's in there. But I don't know how realistic that would be to start coming through the old building with chases and ductwork in order to provide heating and cooling in there. So that needs to be looked at. And probably the options are limited as far as what you can actually do. But again, I think it's worth, obviously with the numbers we're talking about, 64,000, 65,000. The heat works, the heat doesn't work. You go in Lissette's office, I think this was maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago, and you could probably do a spa. I mean, you could have had a spa session in there because it was about 100 degrees in her office. And then you go into the other offices and they're cold. So certainly the system isn't balanced. And from my understanding, the LG system is it's discontinued, and the parts and the way apparently it never worked properly from day one. So unfortunate, but that's the reality you're in now. So I think to file an action, and again, Tom's in the upper right-hand corner, you're probably wasting more time and energy than just to figure out how to fix this thing and get it up and running properly.
We did explore filing actions. Mr. Saul could comment that if he wants to, but before we get to that, I just want to structure the meeting so that it's the most efficient we can do. Mr. Costa, any more comments?
That's all I can tell you.
Ms. Albertola, comments?
I did start with the blessing of the governing body and the funding to purge a lot of antiquated records that are beyond their retention. And we were able to purge almost 300 boxes. But the amount of records that you have to keep and maintain, you're not going to have that cycle of cleaning out records. And I did have as many records as possible taken out of the attic because the ceiling tiles were a little warped, and it's not safe for anybody to go up there with boxes. There's no structural support, no handrail. With regards to surges over the past year, there have been about 8 or 9 power surges, and 4 of them were in the last month. There was actually one last Friday. And it's true, when one system goes and you plug in space heaters, it trips, and then you have to go through either to look for the fuse box that's on the floor or on the base, down in the basement. So it's at a point, in my opinion, if we bring in somebody for the HVAC, then the electrical can't hold it and the structural can't hold it. And I do not want to throw taxpayer money away on doing a fix when it is better to bring in a professional to do an entire assessment, a cost-effective, functional way to move forward and plan. Right now, we're at a point where it is beyond our realm to plan properly. And we want to give you the proper tools to move forward.
Mr. Sarlo, any comments about liability or legal issues?
No, not at this point. I don't see any legal issues that you're dealing with. I mean, you're simply dealing with renovations to the building. You're going to prioritize, what needs to be done and what can wait. based on what you've heard and what your professionals tell you. But I do caution you, again, not coming from a legal perspective, but as Lizette said, piecemealing it and band-aiding it can be difficult. And I think you've heard that your professionals right now don't have the ability to give you a full picture and a professional assessment of the entire building, either prioritizing it or just doing an entire renovation job. Like Lizette said, doing one thing simply can lead to other issues. So no legal things from my perspective, except for I think your professionals are recommending for you guys to take it to the next step in getting an assessment done on the entire building.
So I want to frame a few things for the council's benefit and the public's benefit. Mr. Costa, Mr. Melito, if you could chime in. It's my understanding that we're really dealing with three buildings. We're dealing with the front building, which is original home structure. That's a wood frame building. Then we have the building behind it that was added, I believe, when it became our Burrow Hall, and that's where the council chambers and the business office is. And then we have a third building, which was added, which is our public safety building, which is our police department. Is that correct?
Yes, Mayor.
Okay. Can you, and I believe that we're saying that the front building, so building A, the front building, is circa 1900 or thereabouts?
Yes, Mayor.
Okay, so this building is about 100, maybe 120 years old at this point.
Correct.
Okay, and then the middle building, I don't know how old that is. Does anybody have a general, Rob or Jason, do you have a general idea when the middle building is?
I'm going to say 1989. The redo was 1984 of the Burrow Hall, I believe. I seen the prints for, and then there was an elevator installed with that section in 1989.
And now the public safety building was circa what?
I'm under the impression it was in the 80s.
Okay.
Late 70s, early 80s.
All right.
For the public safety?
Yeah, so building B I asked about, now building C is the police department.
I had hair, Mayor. That much I do know. I had hair. So it definitely had to be around there.
All right. Now, I started this by saying that I was concerned that I've been put on notice. And when I went down to inspect, one of the things that frightened me is the beam that is holding up the first floor, as well as the buckling of the second floor, as well as the buckling of the roof. And these things concern me. And, I have a question of liability. I want to make sure that we get out ahead of it, but I also have a question of like safety for our employees. I know that first building A kind of freaks me out a little bit. I'm not a professional. I'm just telling you, when I went into the basement and saw that what looks like a 6x6 holding up the beam, and that beam looks brittle and is beginning to bow in the basement. Jason, you know what I'm talking about? And the 6x6 that's holding it up is beginning to buckle. According to Jason, it originally was a linear 6x6, and now it has a bit of an arc to it. Also, I asked Judy O'Connell, our deputy clerk, about the door that gets shaved on an annual basis or a semi-annual basis that goes into, Judy, what does that door, it opens into the clerk's office.
Yeah, it's a supply closet.
So it seems that that one of the foremen comes by on a annual or semi-annual basis. Jason, please, give us a more accurate, and has to shave the door because the floor is buckling. And so the door then doesn't open until it gets shaved. Jason, is that essentially correct?
Yes, Mayor.
So what I saw in the basement is a wood frame building that is beginning, in my opinion, to kind of collapse. So, and again, I'm not a professional, but it bothers me. So that's why I didn't want to wait till we got to the finance, when we got to the finance budget committee in January, February. I think also Mr. Costa has said that there's a couple of things that can't wait, which is our structural and electrical issues. I mean, the water is pouring into what looks like our electrical pipes because I see rusting in all those pictures. So what I'm going to open this up to the council, but what I'm asking the council to do is seriously consider whether, and Ms. Apertola, you can chime in. I think we need to hire an architect now. And I think we have to have that. I would feel more comfortable if we looked at that, the buckling of the building now. That's my thoughts. It's a decision of the council. Is any of our professionals, before I open the council, wish to comment on my comments? Do you think I'm overreacting, underreacting? Do you think, to put it into context before the council begins?
Mayor, I agree. Those two items need to be looked at immediately. And again, Lisette, we met last week. I think Jason, you were there also. Those two items need to be looked. First, you got to figure out what's going on with it. And I think that should be done immediately. And then obviously come up with bracing the structure, doing whatever's necessary. Obviously, there was a professor I had in college. If you build a bridge and the bridge falls down, there's no partial credit. So you need to look at it very, very quickly and come up with a solution to fix it. In the meantime, you probably have to brace it to make sure that it doesn't continue to deflect. And ultimately, not that I think it's on the verge of collapse tonight, but this should not continue onward. You need to find out what's causing it and what's going on. And then obviously rectify it as quickly as possible. But I think that can be done under an emergency basis and not go out to bid and all the above. But I think the council should consider doing that immediately. And then the water intrusion. I was there, the water was physically pouring into the basement through the electrical panel. So that needs to be fixed. Figure out what's going on with that. It needs to be fixed immediately. Those two things, absolutely. As far as the other stuff that Jason outlined, those I think are topics that can be put into budgeting, come in with a full assessment, and then go from there, figure out the needs of the borough, and then obviously either design something accordingly, do an interior renovation accordingly. But at a minimum, those two things that obviously, Mayor, you spoke about, Jason spoke about, Lisette, and I know some of the council members were with me also. Those two things should be looked at immediately.
Now, Lizette, I'm about to, Ms. Apertola, our business administrator, I'm about to open it up to the council for questions and comments. But before, I think one of the questions and comments that's going to come, so we might as well address it right now, is do you agree with Mr. Costa that it could be, those two issues could be dealt with in an emergency appropriation? And where would we stand with that emergency appropriation if the council decided to move forward with that?
Our CFO is on vacation this week, but in anticipation, I did ask him what can be done because the community center funding was liquidated and funding that was unfunded that we didn't borrow against, we only had the debt authorization, that was liquidated. That's like when you have a hold on your credit card and then the hold goes away. And then there's other funding set aside that there was permanent financing taken out. So that was put into a fund balance. That's surplus, but for capital purposes. So he had recommended that the funding can be used in the budget to anticipate to offset future debt payments, and take advantage of the low interest rates for borrowing. But if there is a change, he could shift towards using some of that money. So from a finance standpoint and a very watered down version, since I'm not a CFO, we could make the financing work to retain the professional and do the emergency repairs just to stabilize the structure and mitigate the water penetration in the meantime, and then at the same time work towards looking at the overall assessment. What is the game plan? What is the current need, the future need, a green need, whatever the case is, whatever direction the governing body wants to move forward. So we'll work to address the safety issues and the functionality issues, but we just need direction from the governing body on how to proceed, and then we'll make it work from our end.
Okay. All right, so we've heard an informational representation. We've asked for some professional opinions. Now I open it up to the council. Council President, would you like to go first?
Yeah, I suppose. This seems like a pretty big deal, right? Very different than the conversation that the Finance Committee had with Mr. Costa when we walked through it a few weeks ago. I'm a little bit at a loss, but it sounds like what we're being asked is to start thinking about a, what, $20 million project of redoing these 3 buildings, basically knocking them down and starting over. Is that what we're looking at?
Mr. Costa, Mr. Melito, please chime in.
No, the only, Councilman, the only thing I said, based on the rain event that was there, when I went, I wasn't with you that day, but the water was pouring into the basement through the electrical. I mean, that needs to be looked at. But I'm not talking about, I don't think there's any reason to take down the buildings. That's not what, if I said that, then I certainly misspoke, but I don't believe I said anything. What I'm saying is.
So then let me ask this. So then let me ask you, the buildings, they're okay, right? The structures are okay.
As
in my opinion, I don't think
except for that beam that you're talking about that you want
the
people
beam
to look at,
and whoever put
and
that,
the electrical.
Correct.
But the structures themselves, except for those 2 things that are jumping out at you. And again, I'm not asking for 100%. I understand you're eyeballing everything.
Absolutely.
Okay, but when we walked through it, you were pointing out to me how it was built. You were like knocking on the concrete blocks that were the building blocks
in the public
building.
safety bill. Absolutely.
So we're good with all that.
In my opinion, we're good with all of that. As far as what Jason outlined, as far as air conditioning units on there after 25 years old, I don't know that. Again, I don't maintain the buildings. I don't see the maintenance records. But again, you could be coming past its useful life or up to its useful life. So you might have to start thinking about that. But I'm saying that would be long-range planning. He's saying 5 years. I don't know if they're going to go another 5 years. What I'm saying is 2 things that you need to look at. And I'm not saying knock these buildings down by any stretch of the imagination. Whatever's going on with the flexion of the floor in the old section, figure out what's going on. I don't know who put that 6x6 or 8x8 railroad tie down there. I can tell you it wasn't me. No one asked me about it until the day I saw it with you guys. And there's no question it's deflecting. Whether somebody pushed that in there and where the beam was, the column rather, now that column is acting as a column supporting the entire structure and that's where it is, I don't know. Did they push it in hard enough that they picked it off the foundation that it was sitting on? I don't know. All I can tell you is
shouldn't we
something
put some sort of support under there? I mean, if you're worried about it being bowed and everybody's concerned about it, can we put another metal pole or something in there?
I think I want to bring in one of my structural engineers. You might have to open some walls and figure out what's going on. And then if you got to jack up the floor, put additional supports in there until you can figure it out. And then if you have to either fitch plate it with the beam that's there, whether you can slide a new beam in, whether you can use what, first you got to figure out what is going on. And again, I don't think this just started yesterday. I think it's been going on for a certain amount of time. But based on what I saw a few weeks ago, with water pouring into the basement, you need to stop the water infiltration. I know we saw staining. What I saw was a little more than staining the day I was there.
And I agree with everything you're saying, and you know, I'm just throwing it back to before, and I don't remember who mentioned it earlier during the presentation, but talked about piecemeal. Let's not do this piecemeal, and that's why I was wondering if we were being asked to just basically scrap these 3 buildings and start over, because that not doing it piecemeal, that's what it means.
No.
You know,
what I'm saying is those 2 things should be looked at immediately. I don't think they're again, everything is expensive today. But I don't think we're talking about taking down a structure and rebuilding the structure. As far as the heating, the electric, the roof, the mechanical on the public safety building. Obviously, a roof is probably $10 a square foot. Rip it off, put a new one down. The AC units are probably $20,000 a piece. You got 7 of them, that's 140,000. That side of the building is probably 10,000 square feet, another probably $100,000. As far as the outside facade, I mean, these are things you need to look at maybe on a long range in order to renovate. But certainly, you're not going to take down the public safety building. It's masonry.
If I may clarify, because I mentioned piecemeal, I meant that it made no sense to address the HVAC issue if the electrical can't tolerate it and you're shorting everywhere already, or to put something in that the structure may not be able to hold, even if you do this temporary structural fix. To do things properly, we have to look at the entire picture and what can hold what and what's more energy efficient and whatnot. That is what I meant, and I'm sorry if I misrepresented, but I was not
You
alluding to
didn't
a tear
misrepresent
down.
anything. I heard it and that's how I interpreted it, which is why I asked the question. I wasn't meaning to say that you misrepresented anything, nor did I mean to imply that Rob, you told me something differently when we met together.
No,
I was just trying to bring out the fact that these buildings, our employees should feel safe, right? I mean, this building right now is not falling on their heads.
Right.
No.
Okay. I mean, that's
I
kind
was
of the
there-
sense I got from the early conversation.
I was there today, nothing fell on my head. I can tell you that. Maybe somebody wants things to fall on my head, but today nothing fell on my head. All I'm saying, those two things I think need to be looked at. And then as far as everything else that was in the presentation that Jason put together, the council, the mayor, look at those things and see how you can fund them in the future. And again, I don't know if an AC unit is going to break today, tomorrow, a year from now, 5 years from now. But as far as some of the stuff in there, I think it's legitimate. But again, I don't think it has to be done tomorrow morning. The only two things I think this council should just say, handle it, take care of it. Again, why is the beam deflecting the way it is? Find out what's going on with it, and then come up with a solution to fix it. In the meantime, if it is, brace up the bottom of it so it doesn't deflect anymore. As far as the water intrusion, it's probably coming through one of the pipes outside, whether it's the generator when that was done, whether it was the underground electric off the pole. Figure it out and stop the water from coming into the CT cabinet. That's it. And as far as knocking everything down, absolutely. We walked through the building together. Absolutely not required, in my opinion. The public safety building had leaks in the past. I know we did some remediation work years ago. I don't think that is at a crisis whatsoever. As far as the Sally port, if there's leaks there in the concrete decking, scrape it, fix it. If there's water intrusion there, obviously stop the water intrusion. But certainly you don't have to take the building down to do all of those things.
What about that little overhang that's behind your head right now in the picture that you use as your backdrop, right?
Well, that when John was the DPW director, there were stairs there. I don't know if some of the council members probably remember. There were stairs to the front going in. Then the door was changed to become an automatic door, and then somehow the stairs were gone. I think there was a ramp there originally. That's gone, and then the brick pavers went up to the door. We prepared a plan years ago to put a new ramp in there to make it ADA compliant. That slope going into the building does not meet code.
I think he was talking about the roof, Rob.
Yeah, no, I was talking about the roof because
But the
Jason
roof is
brought it
part of-
up and
but
now
part
it's
of
a
the whole-
concern.
But it's part of the whole package. That's when I think the front was redone back then when the door went in, if I'm not mistaken.
But I'm saying the slope facing when he's coming out, I think he's asking, like how the slope is coming down with the snow and everything falling off the front about the pivot side.
Well, it falls off the front, then it falls on the ramp, then the ramp is it's all a combination of all the above.
Is that something though that we have to fix right away because now it's creating a dangerous condition that
Well-
we've now talked about in this meeting and it's on video for perpetuity and perpetuity. Somebody falls walking out of there, isn't there going to be an argument to be made? You guys knew about it?
Well, if somebody falls walking out of there and they hire an expert and the expert takes a couple of shots with a level or a transit, they're gonna figure out that it's too steep walking into the front of the building. Again, there's a plan. You could put it on the street tomorrow morning if you want to do it. I don't think it's that costly to fix that. But again, that's been out there for, Jason, I believe that was done. It's got to be over 5 years ago.
Yeah, probably
Maybe
around
more.
2014, 13. Yeah, that's why it's been brought up a couple of times.
Yeah.
But I think, so just to make this, just to make what I'm looking for, or what I was trying to do here, is that I didn't look for a blowdown in the building, so everybody thought it was. No, we weren't looking for that. What we're trying to do is get a efficient cost analysis of what a renovation would be, what needs to be renovation, how we can do it, whether it's more cost efficient doing it all in one shot, whether it's all cost efficient doing it in piecemeal. Like Rob said, take care of the emergency stuff first, but get something together so we can see, and so we can give you, the mayor and council, a path forward in this to make a decision on. There is a lot of stuff that needs to be addressed, as you can see in the picture, but like Rob said, there are some things that need to be addressed tomorrow instead of, a year from now. So again, we're not looking to take down the building and do that. We're looking for possibly, if anything in the future, a remodel. It's just, how do we do that? How do we do that? That's all. And that's where the professional would come in. To try
I
to
appreciate that, and I think you've done a terrific job explaining all this, Jason, and giving us a very general overview. Obviously, the scope of what needs to be looked at is quite beyond the ability to present everything at a council meeting. I'm a fiduciary here in this town, right? I'm on the finance committee. So one of the things that worries me is the cost of all these things. But not only that, I can't look at this in a vacuum. I have to look at this at knowing that there's things coming down the pike in DPW where you're sitting right now. There's stuff that's going to need to be done all over town. There's going to be issues, and our taxpayers are stretched thin as it is. So I'm all for getting the things done right now that Jason and Rob have told us need to be done immediately. The two items that need to be looked at immediately, absolutely. And we also have to get a handle on the heating for our employees. They deserve to be working in a place that is well heated, and they don't have to be worrying about being cold and things of that nature. But we have to be very, very careful with the finances. So, Ms. Portella will have to meet with the finance committee to really discuss these and vet these things. But I think we are left with no choice based on this presentation that we have to proceed now, as Mr. Costa says. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilwoman Kaufman.
Just wondering, since we're mainly concerned, I think, with electric and how it works in with the HVAC, would it be an architect who would come up with this plan, or some kind of a mechanical engineer?
Mechanical.
Okay.
But basically, you need, on some of the things, you're going to need an architect because you need interior plans, and then other stuff, you're going to need support staff, structural engineer, mechanical engineer, to make everything work. Right now, what I think should be done is bring possibly an architect and a structural engineer to figure out what's going on with the deflections in the floor. And again, if the council wants, you tell me, we'll quarterback it, and we'll get that in motion immediately. And then obviously Jason and I, along with Lisette, and I guess we need the money guy. We're going to need the checkbook, Lisette. So get the checkbook. I would say then come back to the council and say, this is the kind of cost you're looking at to fix these two items. And then you go on a long range plan, present it to the budget committee, what you're looking at on a long range plan. That's it. Then see if there's any grant money out there possibly to offset some of the costs, and then you put the plan together and you go from there. But I think you got a few things you have to do with the building. And again, just for clarity, nowhere did I say knock all these buildings down and start from scratch. So that is definitely not necessary.
No, and I was, Mr. Costa, if I could interrupt, that was the, I was trying to present to the council, we really have a building A, building B, and building C.
Right.
We have 120-year-old building. We have a 50-year-old building, 40, 50-year-old building, and another 40, 50-year-old building. And they have different issues. The structural and electrical issues are in building A.
Correct.
But I understand where Council President came from, because, you know, these issues can, you know, there's a lot, but no, we don't need to tear down building A, B, and C. We don't even need to tear down building A. But there are concerns, structural concerns about building A, which is the 120-year-old building. And there are electrical issues of building A, which are imminent. If I'm hearing you correctly.
You're correct. Building A, for whatever the ideology was back then, Building A, which is the oldest structure, all of the mechanical, telephone, electrical comes into the oldest structure and backfeeds the newer structure, which in my opinion doesn't sound like the smartest thing. But again, at this stage, what are you going to do? You're not going to start redoing all of that. Just fix what's there and obviously keep it operational. And then that's the other side of the coin. You need to keep the building operational because people are there, people are working, and you need to provide the services. So you have to keep that in mind. And if they have to vacate, then that's a whole nother logistical nightmare. So that's what I'm saying. The key is go in, fix the water intrusion, and fix whatever's going on structurally with building A, and then go with your long-term plans on building B, or A, B, and C. That would be my opinion.
Okay. Councilwoman Kaufman, did you have more comments or questions?
That's it for me.
Councilwoman Montesano.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So is it safe to say that the buildings are structurally sound? The compromise issues with the beams and electric are not new, but because of the recent storms and the damages, we became more acutely aware of the extent of the damage. Is that a safe assumption? Because I also felt that it was a bit, that it was almost like we needed to vacate the premises.
You don't need to vacate the premises, in my opinion. What you need to do is you need to pull some sheetrock down, find out what's going on with that main support in the basement. Figure if the load is being transferred from the attic, from the roof, the attic, to the second floor, to the first floor, to the basement. And then find out why that makeshift column that someone put in is actually bowing that much. Why is it taking that much much load? And then once you figure all of that out, then come up with a solution.
I understand.
But I do not, in my opinion, it is not an imminent collapse based on what I saw today, but it needs to be addressed. In my opinion, it needs to be addressed sooner than later.
Yeah, and I agree. I just wanted to, for the public edification, that this is a structural issue that we're addressing. There's no immediate danger to our employees.
Right.
Now, the second point of my comment is, I agree totally that we need to look into the beams and the electric and address that right away. Is the cost that is being asked for us to consider the $100,000, is that for only the architect and the electrical engineer? And also, please, if you could clarify, there was a number you mentioned, I think, Mr. Costa, was 64,000. I'm trying to understand what is the amount that we're.
The 64,000 was a number that Jason put up. That's how much he spent to, I believe, to maintain the heating system. As far as 100,000, if the architect is going to get 100,000, I'm going to apply to architecture school tonight. No, I don't think that's. No, it's not even close to that. You're probably, again, I think I said 20,000 down below. It's probably that number or maybe a little bit less to get where we need to get to with. Yeah, I'm sorry, Jake.
Can I say one thing here? The problem I have with all this, we're talking about cost efficiency and effectiveness. We're talking about possibly ripping walls open to see what structural beams are. Well, if you're gonna start ripping the walls open, aren't you wasting money to rip walls open to see this part, to put the walls back together, to eventually down the road possibly rip the walls open again to make bigger rooms? So I feel like this is what I'm talking about when we're talking about saving money or not. If we're looking at one case of the beam, but you're gonna go above the beam and then you're looking at the first floor and possibly opening that up or making decisions to open that up or change everything. If you're gonna have all the structure ripped apart already, looking at this, wouldn't that be the time to do all of the opening instead of putting it back together to eventually down the road,
But here's your
reopen it
issue.
back up?
The issue is this, you don't have plans to show you how it's built. So you don't know until you can't see. If
I
you can't
understand
see
that.
it, you have to get to it. So the only way to get to it is to take it apart. But all of the other stuff you discussed is not gonna happen in tomorrow morning. So you need to analyze that, and then as far as the other stuff, then you come up with a long-range plan. One has nothing to do with the other.
But
Your long-range plan
I see it does.
is completely separate. What's going on with deflections of floors and beams and columns needs to be addressed
All right.
immediately. And the only way you can do it is to get to it and see it, because you don't have detailed drawings to tell you this is a 2x8, a 2x12, it's a micro lam, it's a power lam, it's a W steel beam. You don't know that. So you're gonna have to do some damage to figure out what it is and what's going on. But again, you're not taking the whole structure apart to get to that point. And again, it might come as simple as, once you figure it out, you're gonna have to brace it and jack it up. And that's gonna be your temporary solution at this point.
Yeah, but this is really a council decision at this point, what we do. So let's
Right.
return to Councilwoman Montesano Cohen. Councilwoman, any other comments or questions?
No, I like I said, I think definitely we need to address those critical issues. My question to the professionals would be, once this is done, and from the rest of the presentation, would we be able to categorize all of the everything that was presented to us by way of critical, right? The most critical, second critical, so we can have a clear picture of what we need to be looking into for a 5-year plan.
Mr. Costa, Mr. Melito.
Yes, that is the intent.
That's correct.
That is the intent, by bringing in the professional to do the assessment, address the immediate need, and then just seeing of what has been identified, plus whatever's behind the walls that we can't see, and then everything will be prioritized and identified the cost, and if there are grant opportunities, or if there's an opportunity to go green, or whatever the case is, that would be identified. And then we can plan and anticipate the budgetary impacts over the long term, as well as the duration of these repairs or renovations, and make sure that things that are being done are not like the HVAC, that it was done 5-6 years ago and it's not functional. If anything is being done aside from the temporary repairs for the long term, we want this 50, 60, 70 years from now, because if we're spending money, we are making sure on behalf of the taxpayers that it is well spent, well accounted for.
Thank you. No further comments, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, Councilwoman Kinsella.
Thank you, Mayor. I would definitely agree that the safety issue needs to be addressed. That beam does not look safe, in my opinion, just looking at the pictures. So I would think that those immediate issues need to be addressed. With regards to the architect, you said that you would need an architect to come in to do the fire company number 2 to reassess that area. So could you not also bring in the same architect to do drawings for, obviously this is a long-term plan, but for the rest of the buildings A, B, and C?
Correct. If that is the will of the governing body, everything can be combined and prioritize that the firehouse has to be done in order to meet the FEMA requirement, and this structural, electrical, water penetration also dovetails in priority, and then the rest we could, move forward accordingly. So that could be done in conjunction as a joint project. Because it is for a public building, they're all public buildings, so it is for the same use.
Right, and I'm sure there's possible grants out there for green, making buildings green today, I would think.
Yes, as for the long-term planning, you could get a LEED certified architect that would have the proper certification to do those types of plans and solicit the grants and identify them.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so let me try framing this, and if I frame this incorrectly, please bear with me, and I would benefit from any corrections. I think it's the will of the council that upon Mr. Costa's recommendation and the presentation made by Mr. Melito and the comments made by Ms. Apratella, that we engage an architect and an engineer to look at the structural and engineering issues of Building A. And that to the best of our ability, we try to maximize the expenditure by linking that to the architect who's going to be looking at the fire department. That we may, at a later date, after that report comes back, continue with the architect to look at buildings B and C. But it appears to me, if I understood the will of the council, that what we're authorizing and to go forward is for an architect to look at fire company number 2 and building A, and to whatever degree the architect and structural engineer feels that that needs to go beyond building A, B, and C for immediate resolution of the issues of concern. Further issues of the long-term plan would be looked at by the Finance Budget Committee in January and February. Have I correctly summarized?
I thought Mr. Costa said what we really need for these buildings is a mechanical engineer, not an architect.
No, he said
Structural.
we needed both.
Structural.
We need a structural engineer and architect is what he had said for building A. Mr. Costa, did I misrepresent that?
Not at all, Mayor. What you're gonna need, as your long-term plan, you're gonna need all the above. So you'll need an architect, a mechanical engineer, a structural engineer. Usually the mechanical will bring in the electrical engineer, or they'll have one on staff.
So
But you would need all the above, but right now.
We're
because they're-
authorizing whatever professionals are necessary to take a look at these
Right.
issues that we've been discussing, the 2 primary issues of concern.
And then what I want to do, once that happens in the next couple of days, granted it's Thanksgiving, right after that, so maybe sometime next week, I'll try to fast track this and then come back to the council to say, okay, this is the findings, this is this solution, this is the temporary solution right now, and then this is a longer term solution as far as whatever's going on structurally. And then come back to the council immediately. So if I can get that done by next week, perfect.
And
I'll try to get it done
I'll
tomorrow.
Emergency meeting for
I
just
can.
that presentation. We certainly can do that, given, of course, the availability of the council's schedule, so that we would have a quorum rather, not a forum. Is the council in agreement with that initial plan?
Yes.
Yes.
Michelle, Indira, Lizette?
Yes.
Sorry, so the architect is just coming in for fire company number 2 and building A.
Yes. And the structural engineer and maybe an electrical engineer will be coming in for building A as deemed by the structural engineer and the architect for building A for these 2 immediate concerns. Mr. Costa, is that correct, the way I described that?
Correct. And then as far as firehouse number 2, you need to get an architect in there to do plans, come up with an estimate, get that to file the claim. I'm sorry, you filed the claim, come up with the estimate to FEMA in order to get reimbursed. So you have 2 things going on. That's firehouse number 2, and then obviously this situation in building A in Burrow Hall. Borough Hall, I will reach out to somebody tomorrow morning. And again, or Jason, if you have somebody in mind, or if the council has somebody in mind, you can put it in motion immediately tomorrow. Get them there, try to get this looked at before Thanksgiving, if not Friday or Monday of next week. And then obviously report back to the council.
So, Councilman Kinsella, to Council President Kenigos, what we'd be doing is authorizing whatever professionals are needed to address Building A and Fire Company 2.
Okay.
Do you have a follow-up question, Councilwoman?
I was just thinking that just for being cost effective, if we were going to have Building B and Building C in that whole picture, in the big picture, would we not just have the architect come in and do everything without having to just plan wise? If you know what I mean, it's like plan wise, and then just confront the fire company number 2 and Building A.
I didn't get the impression that that was the will of the council at this time. Of
No,
course-
I think we should wait for Building B and C, or the public safety building and the council chambers building. I don't believe that there is urgency at the same level as the Building A and the issues with that beam. And like I said, we have a lot of expenses coming up, a lot of things that we're going to have to expend money, and we have to choose priorities. I don't think at this time it would be prudent to expend the extra money. The savings are going to be negligible. It's like when my son comes to me and says, "Hey, look, you're going to save 10% if you buy me this game today." I say, "Well, if I don't buy it, I'm going to save the full amount." So, you know, that's my thought process right now. If it's something that needs to be done, safety of our employees and for the structure of the building, like what is being told us to us in Building A, I think, of course, we do it right away. I don't see that in Building B and C at this point. And based on the walkthrough that Michelle, Joe, and Mr. Costa and I did of the 3 buildings, I don't know, 3-4 weeks ago at most. So personally, I would not support going forward with an architect for Building B and C at this time. Down the line, we can talk about it again.
I agree. I think it's most important that we get the mechanical engineering to assess the electric, et cetera.
No, I was just saying, not in terms of doing any work in B and C, but since the architect is going to be there to do the big picture, possibly not do anything in B and C, but obviously the most important Fire Company 2 and Building A.
I guess the question is,
more
Indira,
cost-effective?
is it cost effective to do it all
Yes.
at once? Can
Yes,
we
just the
look in-
architect,
Right.
the mechanical
You know
engineer,
what?
that's all I'm asking.
I think you're probably, this would be my opinion, you're probably better off just what I need to correct those 2 situations in Building A. And I think what the council should do, interview architects at that point to figure out who you want to use on the remainder. That would be my opinion. Just, you have a situation, again, water intrusion and again, why this beam is deflecting. Look at that quickly, because if someone's going to go in and look at the whole picture, you need to concentrate on that first, and then everything else can take some time. As far as the firehouse, you have a time constraint on that. You need to get all this paperwork in by February 1st. And even though it sounds like it's far away, Thanksgiving is this week. Everybody goes on holiday mode. You have Hanukkah, I believe, on Sunday. You got Christmas, you got New Year's. People, for whatever reason, once Thanksgiving hits, get ready. Get off of Route 4, get off of Route 17. Let the games begin. So everybody goes into holiday mode and it becomes very difficult. Then you come back, you'll have reorganization of the council. So that goes quickly. And the next thing you know is February 1st. So that would be my opinion. But again, whatever you guys decide, your wish is my command.
Just to make a correction on that, it's the end of February. I apologize. I got the sheets right here in front of me. It's the end of February. It's not February 1st.
But it's something we'd rather.
Yeah,
do.
exactly. I just wanted to make sure that
It'll be here before you know it.
Councilwoman Kinsella, any further comments or questions?
No, that's it. I just needed that clarification that it's not cost effective to do it all at once. Okay.
And then just to throw something else in, it never,
Wait,
it
wait.
rarely snows in New Jersey, but then you got that factor too.
Yes. Councilwoman Montesano Cohen? Are we good? Questions, comments?
No, no further comments. Thank you.
Back
Thank you
to
to the
Councilwoman
professionals.
Kaufman, questions or comments?
Thank you, everyone, for your work.
Back to Council President.
Same. Thank you, everybody. And I think we're ready to proceed.
Mr. Sarlo, do we need a motion, or can we simply, it be the will of the council?
Yeah, just the will of the council, Mayor.
All right, Ms. Apertola and Mr. Costa and Mr. Melito, any questions from your end about the will of the council? All right, we did, I know that was long, but I think it's important. And I commend all of you for your thoroughness, both our professionals in the council, your thoughtful questions and process concerning not just the facilities, but the financial well-being of the town. Outstanding job, in my opinion. Not that you need my compliment, but really, really great. Without objection, I will take a motion from Councilwoman Montesano Cohen and a second from Councilwoman Kinsella to open to the public on any item on the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
This is not debatable. Roll call.
Councilman Kanigo,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kaufman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kinsella,
Yes.
and Councilwoman Montesano Cohen.
Yes.
Joe.
Okay, so if anyone has any questions, just raise your hand and I'll allow you to speak. 1 second. Ken Schuffenhauer, if you could say your name and address.
Sure, Ken Schuffenhauer, 780 Millbrook Road in River Edge. Couple things, and I'm not, you can tell me as far as what's in the scope as far as current business, so I'll deal with the one that I guess is current business. I just had a question as far as on the agenda, I guess you have resolution 21.333 as far as approving engineering services for KBG Field as pertains to the ball fields.
So let me stop you there. Ms. Apertola, can you please speak to that briefly?
This is for the engineering involved in all the surveying, drafting of the plans, submitting the documentation along with the consultant retained to do the letter of interpretation to the DEP. These are all the professional services tied in with the project. Anything involving the project, whether it's a soft cost of using a professional or construction, a resolution must be done.
Mr. Schaffenhauser.
Yeah, okay, yeah, so no, just because I didn't know as far as when you see as far as services and everything tied in the field. So this is kind of the precursor, or have there been discussions as far as laying out what the plan is for the field? Because I know we've had discussions and it's we were told as far as the stakeholders would have input on that. So just get a little concerned when I see engineering services tied into that plan. So this is more the lead into the next step. Would that be correct in saying it that way?
Correct, that this is the precursor to get us to DEP and getting the direction, and based on what the state will allow and what type of permitting, we could formulate a plan and bring in the stakeholders to explain, you know, this is what we have, this is what we can do, this is what we can't do. So this is part of the initial phase.
Okay, good. Since you did mention the DEP, I had a brief chance to speak
Ken, you're bugging out.
to the mayor at River Edge Day, and I guess the testing. Okay, is that better?
Yeah, we can hear you now again.
Sure. Okay, yeah. So I was just, when Mayor, I saw you at the River Edge Day, and you had mentioned that at that point, the town had gotten the soil testing survey back and was waiting for an interpretation. I think I've since heard from someone else that a second round of soil testing has been done. So I'm just kind of trying to see where
Yeah,
things
no,
might stand.
this is a timely question. Ms. Apertola or Mr. Melito, would you like to give a brief comment on our most recent, the most recent return on our testing?
The testing showed that there were no high contamination levels that require additional remediation. So the recreation director, since it is a ball field, was directed to engage and make whatever repairs necessary to make it playable as it was before Ida. And we can move forward. She can move forward at that point.
Mr. Schaffenhauser.
Okay, good, great. One final one, which might be out of the scope, but I know at the last meeting was tabled for discussion, the recreation.
Yes, that would not be part of tonight's agenda. You can bring it up later
5-year
on
plan.
when we get to the end of the meeting, only because this meeting has gone very long, or normally I would allow it, but we still have a lot of work to do before we get there. So, and it's not part of the agenda. So you want to bring that up after we finish all the ordinances and the resolutions.
For old business.
Feel
Okay.
free to do that, and that would be a great question.
All right, fair enough. Thank you.
Welcome. Ms. Ms. Michelle. You're muted.
If anyone else has a question, just raise your hand. I don't think there are any other questions.
Excellent. Could I have a motion from Councilwoman Montesano Cohen, a second from Councilwoman Kaufman to close the public on any item on the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilman Kanigo. Councilman Kanigo.
I'm sorry. Yes. Can you
Okay.
hear me?
Councilwoman Kaufman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kinsella,
Yes.
and Councilwoman Montesano Cohen.
Yes.
All right, so we move to appointments and personnel change. I'd like to read into the record the appointment and the approval of salary change. Could I have Councilwoman Kinsella move and Council President Kanigo second once I finish reading it? Approve the salary change of Scott Adder, foreman in the Department of Public Works, for an annual foreman step one salary of $83,533 to foreman step two, $89,463 effective December 14, 2021.
So moved.
Dario?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Second.
Roll call.
Councilman Kanigo,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kaufman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kinsella,
Yes.
and Councilwoman Montesano Cohen.
Yes.
All right, we have monthly reports on record, historic preservation, October 2021, fire department 2021. The public is free to stop down at the clerk's office and get a copy of that if they so wish. We are up to our first reading. Could I have a motion from Councilwoman Kaufman and a second from Councilwoman Indira when I finish reading Ordinance 21-30 and ordinance amending Chapter 240, Section 240-4 of the revised general ordinance of the Borough of River Edge.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Apertola, our business administrator, could you for the public give a brief abstract?
This ordinance would create a student liaison position for a one-year term on the Historic Preservation Commission.
This is open for debate. Is there debate? Hearing none, roll call.
Councilman Kanigo,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kaufman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kinsella,
Yes.
Councilwoman Montesano Cohen.
Yes.
Okay, it's approved. Could I have a motion from the council president and a second from Councilwoman Montesano Cohen for ordinance 21-31 and ordinance to mandate direct deposit for municipal employees by the Borough of River Edge, County of Bergen, State of New Jersey, pursuant to NJSA 52:14-15F.
Moved.
Second.
Ms. Apertola, our business administrator, if you could offer an abstract.
There was a state law adopted about 7 years ago that allow municipalities to have a direct deposit mandate. We have this in our personnel manual. So this is to codify it, and it has a provision for existing employees to opt out. However, new hires as of January 1st will not have an opt-out provision.
This is open to debate. Is there debate? Hearing none, roll call.
Councilman Kenigo,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kaufman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kinsella,
Yes.
Councilwoman Montesano Cohen.
Lisa,
Sorry, yes.
thank you. Could I have Council President Kenigo and Councilwoman Kaufman second? Ordinance 21-32, an ordinance by the Borough of River Edge in the County of Bergen, New Jersey, creating a new section entitled Seasonal Outdoor Dining.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Apertola.
What this does is it establishes a seasonal program in response to the temporary outdoor program that's been in place due to COVID. And this would run from April through October 31st. And a copy of this ordinance was sent to the 5 establishments that have had temporary outdoor dining. And I advised them when the hearing would be.
Okay. And they did not send back any comments.
No, not at this time.
Very good. This is open for debate. Is there debate? Hearing none, roll call.
Councilman Kenigo,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kaufman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kinsella,
Yes.
Councilwoman Montesano Cohen.
Yes.
All right. Could I have a motion from Councilwoman Montesano Cohen, a second from Councilwoman Kinsella for ordinance 21-33, an ordinance amending the revised general ordinance of the Borough of River Edge, chapter 362, entitled Streets and Sidewalks?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Apertola.
The current street opening ordinance was reviewed between myself, our DPW superintendent, borough engineer, and insurance risk manager. And what this does, it updates the bond amounts, it clarifies the language for permitting, and it adds insurance requirements, and it differentiates the rates between whether a contractor soliciting the permit or a resident soliciting the permit.
This is open for debate. Is there debate or comment? Hearing none, roll call.
Councilman Kenigo,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kaufman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kinsella,
Yes.
Councilwoman Montesano Cohen.
Yes.
Okay, that's been approved. Council, could I have a motion from Councilwoman Kaufman and a second from Councilwoman Montesano Cohen for ordinance 21-34? Bond ordinance to authorize the undertaking of various improvements to the public library in and by and for the Borough of River Edge, State of New Jersey, to appropriate the sum of $375,000 to pay the cost thereof, to appropriate a public library contribution, to authorize the issuance of bonds to finance such appropriation, and to provide for the issuance of bond anticipation notes in anticipation of the issuance of such bonds.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Apertola.
This ordinance is to authorize borrowing to complete the cost involved with the renovation in the library for the flex room, multipurpose room, HVAC upgrades, and generator. This was
And a good
approved by the
portion of
governing
that-
body.
Yes, and a good portion of that for the public's benefit, Ms. Apertola, please correct me if I'm mistaken, is provided by grant.
Correct. The library received one of the first grants under the library bond law and received a significant portion, and it was extremely competitive. So they did an outstanding job in that solicitation.
And we are very proud of them, and we are grateful that they have saved the taxpayers of River Edge a substantial amount of money. This is open for debate. Is there debate? Roll call.
Councilman Kenigo,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kaufman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kinsella,
Yes.
and Councilwoman Montesano Cohen.
Yes.
Okay, we come to second readings and hearings of ordinances, so we are going to open to the public. Could I have a motion from Councilwoman Kinsella and a second from Council President Kenigo for ordinance 21-26, an ordinance to amend chapter 206 of the revised general ordinance of the Borough of River Edge entitled Fees?
So moved.
Second.
This is not debatable, but before we move to that, if we could have Ms. Apropola, please give us a synopsis.
We're updating our fee schedule to remove inconsistent language, language that's in conflict with the state statute, and to update certain fees that have been long since outdated. So this is a housekeeping measure.
This is not debatable. Roll call.
Councilman Kanigo,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kaufman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kinsella,
Yes.
Councilwoman Montesano Cohen.
Yes.
Okay, we're open to the public. Councilwoman Kaufman.
If anyone has a question, just raise your hand and I'll allow you to speak. I don't think there are going to be any questions. Oh, sorry, excuse me. There is one. 1 second.
Ken, you have to stay your name and address again, okay?
Yep. Ken Schuffenhauer, and I haven't moved. I'm still at 780 Millbrook.
Sorry, that was my bad. Sorry about that. Go
You
ahead.
got kicked off. You're being brought back in. Give it a moment. Ken, you're back in.
Sorry about that.
Okay, all right. So just, I assume it might have to do with the council person Lustide's non-attendance as far as, because I think when Dario suggested tabling the conversation on the recreation 5-year plan, so is that?
No,
scheduled to
this
come
has
back?
nothing to do with that.
Oh, okay.
Ms. Apertola, if you could just clarify for Mr. Schaffenhauser.
Well, right now we're in the public hearing for the ordinance on the fees.
Oh, okay.
21-26.
Oh, okay, all right. I heard open to the public, so I would, it's gone
Okay,
on.
we're gonna be
longer.
saying that 1, 2, 3 more times. The state statute requires us to open to public on each law that the council creates. A law on the municipal level is called an ordinance. So you have a
All right.
first reading, which the public is not allowed to comment on. And then we move to a second reading, which occurs at the very next meeting or 2 weeks later. And at that time, the public can offer an opinion or comment on that particular ordinance.
Fair enough. I will wait for the magic words, old business, and then chime in if we get done before my bedtime. So, all right, thank you.
Ken, we're moving swiftly along, so we hopefully will. And
Yep.
I will, even if you forget to raise your hand, I will call on you.
All right, great. Thanks again.
All right, great. All right, so I don't believe there's any further comment. So can I have a motion from Councilwoman Montesano Cohen, a second from Councilwoman Kinsella to close to the public on ordinance 21-26?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilman Kanigo,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kaufman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kinsella,
Yes.
Councilwoman Montesano Cohen.
Yes.
Okay, could I have a motion from the Council President Kanigo and a second from Councilwoman Kaufman to adopt ordinance 21-26, an ordinance to amend Chapter 206 of the revised general ordinance of the Borough of River Edge entitled fees?
So moved.
Second.
This is debatable. Is there debate? Hearing none, roll call.
Councilman Kanigo,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kaufman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kinsella,
Yes.
Councilwoman Montesano Cohen.
Yes.
Okay, could I have a motion for Councilwoman Kinsella and a second from the Council President Kanigo to open to the public on ordinance 21-27, an ordinance to amend Article 2, Chapter 114 of the revised general ordinance of the Borough of River Edge entitled alcoholic beverages?
So moved.
Second.
This is not debatable, but before we begin that, if we could have a summary from our business administrator.
Yes, since we updated many of the borough fees, we also updated the language with alcoholic beverages, our consumption, distribution, and club licenses. So as part of updating the fees, we need to update the language in the portion of the code that addresses those licenses.
Excellent. This is not debatable. Roll call.
Councilman Kanigo,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kaufman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kinsella,
Yes.
Councilwoman Montesano Cohen.
Yes.
Is there any member of the public who would like to comment or ask a question of 21-27?
Please raise your hand if so. Doesn't look like it.
Could I have a motion from Councilwoman Kaufman and a second from Councilwoman Montesano Cohen to close to the public on ordinance 21-27?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilman Kanigo,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kaufman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kinsella,
Yes,
Councilwoman Montesano Cohen,
Yes.
Can I have a motion from Councilwoman Kinsella and a second from Councilwoman Montesano Cohen for adoption of 21-27, an ordinance to amend Article 2, Chapter 14 of the revised general ordinance of the Borough of River Edge entitled Alcoholic Beverage.
so moved.
Second.
This is debatable. Is there debate? Hearing none, roll call.
Councilman Kanigo,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kaufman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kinsella,
Yes,
Councilwoman Montesano Cohen,
Yes.
Could I have a motion from Councilwoman Kaufman and a second from Council President Kanigo to open to the public on ordinance 21-28, an ordinance to fix the salary, wages, and compensation of officers and employees of the Borough of River Edge in the County of Bergen and the State of New Jersey for the year 2021?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Apertola.
Ordinance 21-28 updates the salary compensation for the position of Borough Clerk.
Roll call.
Councilman Kanigo,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kaufman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kinsella,
yes,
Councilwoman Montesano Cohen,
Yes.
Okay, is there any member of public who wishes to ask question or comment about ordinance 21-28?
I don't think there is.
Could I have a motion from Councilwoman Montesano Cohen, a second from Councilwoman Kaufman to close to the public on ordinance 21-28?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilman Kanigo,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kaufman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kinsella,
yes,
Councilwoman Montesano Cohen,
Yes.
Okay, could I have a motion from Council President Kanigo and a second from Councilwoman Kinsella to adopt ordinance 21-28, ordinance to fix the salaries, wages, and compensation of officers and employees of the Borough of River Edge in the County of Bergen and the State of New Jersey for year 2021?
So moved.
second,
This is debatable. Is there debate? Hearing none, roll call.
Councilman Kanigo,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kaufman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kinsella,
yes,
Councilwoman Montesano Cohen,
Yes.
Okay, that's been approved. Let us move to ordinance 21-29. Could I have a motion from Councilwoman Kaufman and a second from Council President Kanigo on ordinance 21-29, a bond ordinance to authorize the acquisition of new self-contained breathing apparatus equipment for the use of the fire department in and by and for the Borough of River Edge in the County of Bergen, State of New Jersey, to appropriate the sum of $280,000 to pay the cost thereof, to make a down payment, to authorize the issuance of bonds to finance such appropriations, and to provide for issuance of bond anticipation notes in anticipation of the issuance of such bonds.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Apertola.
This is a debt authorization in order to secure funding for our fire department to purchase Scott packs. Unfortunately, with the extremely ultra competitive Assistance to Firefighters grant, they did not receive the award. And earlier this year, we anticipated as a backup to put it in next year's capital budget, but we had to move forward with the funding now in order to secure the price given the unstable supply chain and inflation that we're all experiencing.
Well said, well said. This is opening to the public. Roll call.
Councilman Kanigo,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kaufman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kinsella,
yes,
and Councilwoman Montesano Cohen.
Yes.
Would any member of the public ask a question or make a comment about ordinance 21-29?
Does not look like anyone.
Okay, could I have a motion from Councilwoman Kinsella and a second from Councilwoman Montesano Cohen to close to the public on ordinance 21-29?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilman Kanigo,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kaufman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kinsella,
Yes.
Councilwoman Montesano Cohen.
Yes.
Okay, could I have a motion from Council President Kanigo and a second from Councilwoman Kinsella to adopt ordinance 21-29 about, I think we got the idea, bond ordinance.
So moved.
Second.
All right, this is for adoption, so therefore it's open to debate. Is there debate? Hearing none, roll call.
Councilman Kanigo,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kaufman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kinsella,
Yes.
Councilwoman Montesano Cohen.
Yes.
All right, those are all our ordinance. Well done, everyone. Could I have a motion from Councilwoman Montesano Cohen, a second from Councilwoman Kaufman to move resolutions 21-322 through 21-325, 21-327, and then 21-329 through 21-335?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any member of council who wishes to debate, ask a question, comment, or ask for a separate vote on any one of these?
Ms. Zapparello, could you just remind us the engineering services for the parking lots? Can you just give us a summary of those?
Yes, the services are to do the survey and drawing, so that way next year when the project is funded, we could go out to bid and combine the projects from 21 and 22, and that way we're ready for the following year to pave the roads as well. So this is just in order to have shovel-ready projects.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, in case I might have misspoke at any point, we're doing resolutions 21-322 through 21-335 that have not already been moved, just to make sure that we don't make any mistakes. This is debatable. Is there debate? Hearing none, roll call.
Councilman Kanigo,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kaufman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kinsella,
Yes.
Councilwoman Montesano Cohen.
Yes.
Could I ask our finance chair, Councilwoman Kaufman, to move 21-336?
Payment of bills at a regular meeting of the mayor and council of the Borough of River Edge, County of Bergen, State of New Jersey, held on November 22, 2021. Be it resolved that the mayor and council of the Borough of River Edge approve the following expenditures. Current fund, $567,870.05. Capital fund, $392,342.69. Grant fund, $3,505.80. Trust other fund, $4,433.80. Open space fund, $4,457.25. Payroll fund, $17,712.82. Recreation trust fund, $3,096.75. So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilman Kanigo,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kaufman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kinsella,
Yes.
Councilwoman Montesano Cohen.
Yes.
Okay, Ken, you're after new and old business, but I haven't forgotten you, Ken, but public comments is not until after new and old business. New and old business. Is there any member of council who wishes to raise an old or new issue? Please don't. No, I'm only joking. All right, assuming that that no one was, put off by my joke, we would now move to public comments. Could I have a motion from Councilwoman Montesano Cohen and second from Councilwoman Kinsella to open the public on any issue the public may wish to discuss or ask about?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilman Kanigo,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kaufman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kinsella,
Yes.
Councilwoman Montesano Cohen.
Yes.
Ken, you're up.
All
Gotta say
right.
your name and address
Yep.
again.
Ken
Hope you didn't
Schopenhauer,
move.
780 Millbrook Road. So you might be able to anticipate the question, but just looking for what the status is of the recreation 5-year plan and coming back to in front of the council and everything?
So
Future
there's-
date. We're not doing that tonight, Ken. It'll be on a future agenda.
All right, short and sweet on that one. All right.
Anything
That
else?
all? No, there was one other, but not important because I think it was part of the parking lot discussion. So actually, yeah.
Go
So
ahead.
Continental Road, the project that was done, is repaving included in that project, or is that part of something else?
Ms. Apertola, would you please give a comprehensive explanation for Mr. Schaffenhauser?
Milling and paving is part of the Continental Avenue project as well as the library parking lot. But due to the ambient overnight temperatures, we cannot pave. So it is being held off until the spring once there is a consistent average number of evenings that are above frost. So it won't be complete until the spring.
Okay, yeah, no, because the only comment I have tied in that, and probably with the repaving, hopefully the yellow line that goes down centered on the wide portion, but it kind of gives you a little squeeze play where the road now juts in and everything. So hopefully that will be part, I'm sure the engineers will, or whoever does the paving will say, okay, put the line. So it's.
Mr. Apertola, to Ken's question, it was my understanding that the borough engineer was going to make sure that if we didn't go to paving, that we would do a quick grinding and a painting of the lines if we couldn't do it until the spring. Is that what's going to occur?
Correct. The contractor is still doing some concrete work, and then the current lines will be ground and temporary striping will be put in. Then once it's milled and paved, the permanent striping will be put in.
Ken, does that answer?
That does. You did yeoman's overtime today. Put yourself in for a little something extra, a little extra turkey and everything. So have a great Thanksgiving, and I'm sure we'll see you in December.
All right, Ken. Good.
Happy Thanksgiving, Ken.
Thank you.
There's only one other person here. Chief Sanders, any comments or questions? No, he's not raising his hand, so I assume he's satisfied. All right, Ms. Kaufman, am I right, Councilwoman Kaufman, that we can move on?
Yes.
All right, could I have a motion from Councilwoman Kaufman and a second from Council President Kanigo to close to the public on comments?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilman Kanigo. Councilman Kanigo.
He said yes, it was very low. but he
Okay.
did say yes, go ahead.
Councilwoman Kaufman.
Yes.
Councilwoman Kinsella.
Yes.
Councilwoman Montesano Cohen.
Yes.
Okay, council comments. Are there any council comments?
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody, in advance.
Happy
You
Thanksgiving.
You stole mine. Happy Thanksgiving. Also, I'd like to, with the official results, say congratulations to Councilwoman Kaufman on her reelection and Councilwoman-elect Malalari on her her election.
Thank you.
Thank
Here,
you.
here. Anything else? All right, it was a long night, but a lot of good work done. Could I have a motion from Councilwoman Montesano Cohen, a second from Councilwoman Kinsella for Resolution 21-337, resolution to go into closed session and exclude the public, closed session docket 21-11/22-1, personnel matter, building department, closed docket number 21-11/22-2, attorney-client privilege, overview of Chapter 79. Closed docket number 21-11/22-3, personnel matter, administration.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilman Kanigo.
Yes.
Councilwoman Kaufman.
Yes.
Councilwoman Kinsella.
Yes.
Councilwoman Montesano Cohen.
Yes.
Okay, in a minute, can I have a motion from Councilwoman Kaufman and a second from Councilwoman Kinsella to adjourn? Do we need 5 minutes? Yeah. So
Yes,
it's 9:10 or 9:15?
9:10, 5 minutes.
Are we all good with that?
Yes.
All right, could I have that motion in second now to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All right, roll call.
Councilman Kanigo,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kaufman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kinsella,
Yes.
Councilwoman Montesano Cohen.
Yes.
Oh, before
All
we
right,
go,
everybody,
I'm sorry, before we go, do we get a link? Oh, yeah, okay, I'm sorry. Yep, I see it.
You have a link.
Never mind.
So we'll see everyone at 9:10.
Yep.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.